Alrighty, welcome back. This is my new floating island. This lad here. Obviously it's anchored to this platform at the present time, but very soon it'll be set aloft and placed in the middle of my pond. And I'll whip it out and show you how it's made. Okay, so this is basically made up from 4-inch solvent weld pipe you can get from plumbing merchants and so on. That creates the air bubble around the outside to keep this thing aloft, or at least floating at the water surface. These are the trays that postal workers carry around with them to put small packages in and letters and so on in their vans. If you ask them nicely, they will give you some. And these are perfect for a floating island because they're kind of neutrally buoyant and they're very easy to drill holes in. They're good, thick, strong containers, you know. And I don't know whether you can see, but there's probably thousands of holes that I've drilled in all of these trays. They're all different sizes, but they fit together to form a rectangle which is approximately 1.2 meters or 4 foot by roughly 0.9 meters, which is about 3 feet. Maybe it's a little bit bigger than that, especially by the time you take the outer edge into consideration. So they're all cable tied together. And again, there's hundreds of cable ties in this. The outer edge is also cable tied on, but then I strapped it on with paracord, and then I strapped it on with thick plastic coated wire. So the whole structure isn't going to fall to pieces. And underneath, there's a little bit more buoyancy as well. So that's looking at the underneath of it. As you can see, I've strapped some pool noodles on there. I've also filled the outer pipes with pool noodles as well. So there's one in here, one in there, and one across the bottom as well. Just in case this pipe ever leaks in at a future point in time. But at least I'll have the pool noodles in to help to keep the thing afloat. And this on the top is actually an access ramp. I'll just tilt the camera. And if we'll look at it from the side, actually it's probably going to be easier to demonstrate on the water, so I'll explain it fully on the water. But basically this is an access ramp for my terrapins and the ducks to get onto this thing, just in case it floats a little bit high in the water, you know. And that'll float and keep this at the right level. I want the water level to be about here, so it's easy for them to get up, you know. And you can see that it's not too heavy, you know, one person can easily lift it. Hopefully you'll be able to see it's floating at quite a nice level there, you know. That's perfect. You've got about 2/3 of the trays filled with water. And by the time we fill this with plants and aggregate and it gets weighed down a little bit more, hopefully the water will be up to here. I'll just spin it round and show you this little access ramp. There you go, see where that is? Just under the water here, along there. And if this sinks down a little bit, you know, gets weighed down by the plants and aggregate that I'm going to put in here, because that's got to float underneath it, that just keeps floating to the right level. Oh, you can just about see inside the pipe. I put another pool noodle in there as well, just to make that thing float. So those plants will basically just get chucked into those containers. I'll fill all the gaps in with different sizes of pumice, and then I shall anchor it on either side of the pond with some 10 or 12 millimeter diameter rope. It's basically like a really thick version of paracord. If I just get a little bit closer, you can see just how many holes I've drilled in these things. They're fair riddled with holes, and that'll give the roots a chance to come out and hang underneath the floating island. So when it's anchored out there, the fish are just going to be attracted to it. You're going to have big, long trailing roots going into the water, you know. Plus, you're going to have a great sunning site, like a basking site for the terrapins as well. One of which is just over here. They've lived in this pond for about 20 years. And they're going to love this. So that's a typical example of one of the plants. That one is the pendulous sedge. See the roots pretty long? These roots will actually get 2 or 3 feet long, so they'll hang way below this thing. And all we need to do with those is simply just chuck them in. Like that. Most of these are one of 2 species that are prevalent in here. The first one is pendulous sedge, Carex pendula. The second one is quite a woody plant which forms a bush with beautiful pink flowers on, and that one is called, what's it called? Purple loose strife, or Lythrum salisaria, I think. If that's wrong, I'll put the name along the bottom. In fact, I'll put it along the bottom anyway. And the other plant that we've got in here is this one, which is known as creeping jenny. I think the Latin name on it is Lysomachia punctata maybe, and it trails all over the place. It's basically ground cover, so with any luck that'll be trailing over the sides of here and making a proper island out of it. Right, now all we need to do is just fill in the gaps between the plants with some pumice. This is really good quality pumice, so much of it actually floats. That's not going to add much weight to the whole floating island at all. So I'll chuck the big stuff in, fill in the small gaps with that. If I need anything else, I can just put gravel in, or alpha grog, or just even some of this old filter media. Some of that old stuff, anything will do. Okay, so that's it planted up, and that's all of the pumice in there as well. Obviously it looks a bit bare, but they are big plants and they will grow fast. So, you know, within 2-3 months, you know, that'll be 2 or 3 feet tall. It'll be way up. It'll be absolutely covered by the time the summer comes, and certainly at the end of summer you'll get all the flowers and everything on it. It'll look beautiful. Well, there you go. That's it finished. Well, apart from anchoring it in the middle of the pond, that is at a perfect level now. I had to adjust where the float was. The float was a little bit too far down, so I moved it back a little bit, and that level now is absolutely perfect. And obviously it will allow it to rise up if this gets heavier, which it will as the vegetation grows. And talking of vegetation, the sedge gets at least 2 feet, 2.5 feet tall, plus the flower spikes, and the purple loose strife gets maybe 5 feet tall. So this is just going to be packed with plants, foliage and cover for whatever chooses to climb out of the pond and rest in here. So by the summer it's going to be absolutely packed with foliage, and by the end of summer you're going to have all the flowers on the purple loose strife. It's going to look beautiful, and of course I will make a video on it then. All that remains for me now is to anchor it to either side of the pond so that it is held in the middle of the pond. I'll do that, take a short video, and then bid you farewell. Okay, I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see that because the sun's kind of shining into the camera, but there's the island, pretty much bang in the middle of the pond. I might need to adjust it a little bit, but it's secured on the left and also on the right. So that'll hold it more or less steady. It might rock around a little bit in the wind, but it won't break free from that. That's really strongly anchored. I may as well give you a quick update on the clarity of the pond, because I put a big filter system in, which I'll show you. I've cleaned it out, it looks pretty good now, and you'll be able to see just how clear the water is on this huge pond. Should have really brought a pair of polarizing sunglasses, but hopefully you'll be able to see how clear it is there. I'll go somewhere where there's a bit of shade, you might be able to see it better. Ducks. There's 41 ducks on the pond the other night. Absolutely heaving with them. If I zoom in down there, you might be able to see the rocks or pebbles and aggregate and so on underneath the water. Pretty clear for a big pond. It's full of ducks. There's a bit that's quite shaded. You might be able to see how clear it is there. And that's the flow of water that's going into the pond from the field drains way up the field. You know, it's flowing not too badly. Constantly flushing it out eventually. And this is where the filter system is. So we've got 3 big vortex filters followed by huge tubs of alpha grog in crates. And these things in here are just brushes. I just hang brushes in baskets, in containers, plastic containers, like big planters, and just drop them in there. So when the water flows through, it just gradually gets cleaned, and there's a nation of little invertebrates in there that eat all the algae out of the water. Looks like the pump's gone off. It's on a timer, so it's not on all the time. It tends to go off for like 1/4 of an hour at a time. Come on for half an hour, off for 1/4 of an hour, just to keep this thing ebbing and flowing all the time. There you have it, a new addition to the pond. Hopefully the ducks will appreciate it, and I'll give you an update later in the summer when all those plants have come up and it's looking really lush with vegetation. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.